Tonight, tragedy in Texas. 19 primary school students killed by a teenage gunman. America in mourning and asking, how can it happen again?
When in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby?
Also a shock twist as police swoop after a didgeridoo attack outside the MCG. Emergency crews in a painstaking search for 3 missing people. A push for free flu shots as hospitals battle new chaos. The Victorian number plates worth more than $2 million. And later, why home buyers are facing a mortgage cliff and what they can do now to limit the pain.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. America is in mourning again tonight after 19 primary school children and 2 of their teachers were murdered by a teenage gunman with an assault rifle. It's prompted an outpouring of grief, with President Joe Biden demanding their deaths finally bring change.
America's endless gun horror unleashed on the most innocent of all.
You just see a lot of helicopters, you see a lot of law enforcement around.
This man showing 7 News a video of children running from their school as a shooter murders their friends.
But then when you see the kids come out, that's what it really gives it, gravity and reality.
We need to respond to South Grove and Mill Street to establish a perimeter.
Late morning, police surround a southwest Texas primary school, grades 2 to 4, just days from their long summer holiday.
This is the residential street this gunman has come flying up, crashing his vehicle in a stormwater drain just up the road. Armed, he's then got out and opened unimaginable fury on this classroom.
Witnesses describe children crawling out windows to escape as police engage the killer in a gun battle. 2 officers hit, both expected to recover.
The suspect is deceased at this point.
This, the new face of schoolyard terror, Salvador Ramos, 18. A local in the town he's accused of attacking with a pistol and a military assault rifle. And this believed to be Ramos during his wild last minutes, the murder spree apparently beginning before he even got here.
It is being reported that the subject shot his grandmother right before he went into the school.
And this, a face from among those Ramos took. Media identifying Xavier Lopez, aged 10, grade 4. In fact, many little faces didn't come home from school around the small town of Uvalde.
Just confused and worried. I'm trying to find out where my baby's at.
Fear as parents can't find their children. Worry, this man tells us his nephew is wounded and in hospital.
Family is feeling devastated right now, so shocked, can't believe it. They are in agony of pain right now.
And paralysing shock.
My heart goes out to all the parents. I feel so sad. Horrible.
Uvalde's pain echoes America's pain. This year, 212 mass shootings where 4 or more have suffered bullet wounds.
As a country, we have been through this too many times.
That was a decade ago. After the Sandy Hook school shooting, 26 died there. Today, President Biden briefed on the carnage as he flew back from Asia and ordered flags lowered.
To lose a child is like having a piece of your soul ripped away.
And then all but scolded his country for not standing up to the gun lobby.
Where in God's name is our backbone? What in God's name do you need a solvent for except to kill someone? When in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby?
Anger stemming from politics.
This only happens in this country and nowhere else. Nowhere else do little kids go to school thinking that they might be shot that day.
To sport.
Children murdered at school. When are we going to do something?
To communities grappling again with a brutal American phenomenon.
Well, hopefully something changes about these guns. Because an 18-year-old, same age as me, has an AR-15. That's wrong.
And David Woodward is in Texas this evening. David, powerful words from President Biden, but this atrocity appears unlikely to change anything.
Good evening, Mitch. Incredibly powerful words from the US President Joe Biden this afternoon. He has taken aim quite squarely at the country's all-powerful gun lobby, the National Rifle Association. But look,
The truth and the tragedy of all of this is America, Pete, has been here before. The country said never again after the tragedy that unfolded at Sandy Hook Elementary back in 2012. But here we are, a decade on, and very little has changed in America when it comes to gun law reform. Political appetite for change very low, particularly here in Texas, where the state's governor, as well as a senior senator and even the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, are all set to give keynote addresses at the National Rifle Association's annual meeting just up the road in Houston in 2 days' time. Pete?
David Woiwod in Texas, thank you. Back home now, and a Dandenong North man has been charged over the shocking didgeridoo assault that left a footy fan in hospital with a fractured skull. Police say the accused took part in an official ceremony at the Dreamtime game before he attacked.
A 3-day manhunt over a sickening didgeridoo attack ended in an early morning raid in Dandenong North.
Are you embarrassed?
Are you? Jesse Rutama Gardner is accused of the brutal assault outside the MCG on Saturday night. Police say he took part in a smoking ceremony before the Dreamtime at the G game. But neither the AFL, Essendon or the MCG have any record that he had an official role on the night. 4 hours later, detectives say the 26-year-old attacked. An act that left footy fan Daniel with fractures to his skull and a broken nose.
Maybe one more blow, Daniel mightn't be with us today.
A bit worried about his mental state after all this. He's not talking about it at all. I think he's only seen the footage once, so doesn't even want to look at it really.
It was good to hear there's been an arrest, but I hope there's more arrests, which I'm sure there will be.
Police seized the didgeridoo and other evidence from the Dandenong North home. The 26-year-old has been charged with offences, including assault with a weapon, affray and intentionally causing injury. He has been bailed and will face a magistrate in December.
He might feel a little bit better to know that, someone has been arrested. The Victoria Police has done a good job. Yeah. They really have.
Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
The Andrews government is considering free flu shots for all Victorians to help ease the pressure on our under-siege hospitals. The Premier is blaming COVID for the crisis that's left dying patients caught in chaos.
Hospitals overrun and surrounded by ambulances that can't offload patients. A code orange was declared again last night as the health system operates at breaking point.
And I walked through the doors to go outside and people were sitting in the rain under tents outside emergency. I mean, something has to be done.
Widow Jan Rowe says her terminally ill husband was left on a gurney for 6 hours at Box Hill Hospital earlier this month. Another 13,000 COVID cases today and soaring flu cases adding to the strain. Police officers are being regularly called on to help transport mental health patients.
It's really sad to see, actually. These people are often scared and they're frightened. We know that the presence of a police uniform in that circumstance can sometimes make things worse.
The government says there are currently 1,581 healthcare staff off work because they're sick or in isolation. Last week, more than 12,000 shifts were cancelled for the same reason.
There's pressure there, there's no doubting that. And the biggest driver of that pressure is the fact that we are still in the midst of a 1 in 100 year event.
It's not just about money, it's about management. And the system has been fundamentally mismanaged for the last 8 years.
As cases of the flu rise around the country, Queensland has made the flu vaccine free and New South Wales is considering the move. Today, the Premier revealed Victoria could be next.
GPs would certainly welcome that from the Victorian government. In fact, we've been urging for it as well.
27% of parents said cost is a barrier for them when it comes to flu vaccine for their children.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
And a further 1.5 million people are now eligible for a fourth COVID shot. Australia's Vaccine Advisory Group is urging people with a disability or underlying health conditions to get the shot ahead of winter.
The extension of the winter dose is about protecting people from severe disease from COVID.
People eligible for a fourth dose can get it from next week. Key seats are still too close to call after the federal election as postal votes still pour in. Blake Johnson is tracking the count, and Blake, the official election result hangs in the balance.
Pete, last-minute postal votes could decide whether or not Labor can form a majority government. Voters have another 9 days to get their postal votes in, which means a long wait for candidates in the Melbourne seats of Deakin and Macnamara. To Deakin first, Liberal Michael Sukkar has a very thin margin of just 751 votes over Labor's Matt Gregg. Mr Sukkar has extended his lead thanks to those votes still coming in. But postals favour Labor in Macnamara. That's where Josh Burns has a lead of around 2,200 on the primary vote. The Greens' Steph Hodgins-May is in second spot. The tightest count is Gilmore, New South Wales, where the Liberals lead by just 128 votes. In Kooyong, the recycling has begun of 4,000 Monique Ryan signs and 11 kilometres of bunting. The bunting to be turned into garbage bags, and the wooden stakes likely to be held onto and reused at the next election, meaning our streets can finally return to some sort of normal.
Blake Johnson reporting, thank you. Liberals are turning on Scott Morrison as infighting grows in the fallout over the Liberals' massive loss. The backlash built as Labor worked to come to terms with the cost of living impact of the nation's economic woes and China's activities on our doorstep.
After climbing the international ladder, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese heads home, finalising a series of high-level talks with Quad nations in Japan.
It's been a very positive way to start a new government.
But it was China's growing influence in the region that led discussions. News today that in addition to the Solomon Islands, the Chinese Foreign Minister will this week visit Kiribati, Samoa, Fiji, Tonga, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste, right on Darwin's doorstep.
To develop the friendly and cooperative relations.
It's not going unnoticed. Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong is preparing her own blitz of South Pacific nations within days.
We've got a lot of work to do to regain Australia's position as the partner of choice in the Pacific.
And the Prime Minister is expected to fly to Indonesia in coming weeks.
We want a stable, prosperous, secure region.
Jim Chalmers' second day on the job, meeting Treasury and Reserve Bank officials in Canberra, acknowledging the months ahead will be tough.
Interest rates will go up further for the rest of the year in some way or another.
And not mincing his words over the poor state of the budget.
No new government can flick a switch and make $1 trillion of debt disappear.
As the post-mortem on the Liberals' defeat continues, several members now frankly declare it was Scott Morrison who killed their chances.
The Prime Minister was clearly of concern in some seats.
Scott Morrison didn't have a positive approval rating nationally.
Mr Morrison was spotted with wife Jenny this afternoon, boxes in hand, no longer carrying the weight of the country, as they finally move back into their southern Sydney home. Some MPs had wanted Josh Frydenberg to move into the top job last year. He declined, telling 7 News he was loyal to the PM, but says his political career is not over, insisting he'll be back in 2025. Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
A billionaire financier is warning Russia's invasion of Ukraine will spark World War III. George Soros has implored world leaders to put the pandemic and climate change on the back burner and focus on the war.
The invasion may have been the beginning of the Third World War, and our civilization may not survive it.
More than 200 bodies have been found in the rubble in Mariupol. Back home now, search crews are slowly working through the remains of the historic King Street Hotel gutted by fire, searching the rubble for 3 missing people. Paul Dowsley is in the city this evening, and Paul, they've been forced to demolish part of the century-old building.
That's been the only way they could get in, Mitch, and so far there's been no sign of the people thought to
to be making it their home. So it's been a slow, deliberate and a delicate process because the middle of the 3 buildings destroyed by the suspicious fire was too dangerous to enter. A witness says she saw someone inside throwing burning items out a window, and today a fireman, a policeman were watching from a platform up high, directing the excavator operator, a drone being used too, looking for remains.
We're holding out really good hopes, but at this stage, being that it is a squat, people come and go and we have no control over who stayed there on the night.
Lonsdale Street remains closed. Mitch, search teams back in the morning. It's not yet clear when the street here will reopen.
Paul Dowsley at King Street, thank you. There are now dozens of monkeypox cases in Europe and North America, with some countries announcing targeted vaccination programs. A returned traveller from Europe could be California's first case. Globally, there are more than 200 suspected and confirmed cases of the virus. Victoria's only case, a man in his 30s, has been discharged from the Alfred Hospital and is isolating at home. A mystery bidder has made an extraordinary investment, shelling out more than $2 million for a set of old number plates. The sale smashes the previous Victorian record for heritage plates.
These tiny pieces of metal are worth double Melbourne's median house price, fetching $2.27 million in an online bidding war.
We sold the plate for $75,000 and today it's fetched over $2.2 million. So, the growth has been phenomenal.
It's becoming like a commodity. It's a bit like Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies. People are looking at ways of speculating.
The sale smashes the previous record for a double-digit heritage plate, set 2 years ago when number 26 sold for $1.1 million. Since then, the market for rare plates has boomed, overtaking stocks and property in terms of bang for your buck.
The last 12 months has just been absolutely nuts. The prices have not only doubled and tripled, but we've seen 5 times increase in the value of some plates.
Despite their growing sale value, many families choose to hang on to the rare plates, passing them on from generation to generation. That means they may end up on a modest car worth a fraction of the value.
Vic 14 is still a far cry from numbers 1 and 8. Their value's estimated to be as high as $10 million. But like any investment, it comes with risks.
It certainly does feel like a bubble to me.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Tim Watson's here with a look ahead to sport, and Tim, a North Melbourne legend, has had enough.
He has, Mitch. Wayne Carey says the club is at its lowest ever point and urgent action is needed. We'll hear from the Roos' greatest player shortly. Also, the Cats weigh in on a hot topic involving Patrick Dangerfield. Why the Hawks are using dishwashing liquid at training, and Mitch, Justin Langer has broken his silence on a messy exit from Cricket Australia. I'll see you again soon.
OK, Tim, thanks very much. A bizarre showdown is unfolding over a school gate at Alphington. Cut down in the dark of night and again late today. Next on 7 News, who did it and what's next? Also, the Victorian woman on trial accused of ordering her husband to kill her ex. 6 arrests after a strange robbery in the city. And royal praise from one queen to another.
She's been...
6 people have been arrested after a man was robbed of his clothing at Southbank. The 26-year-old was approached by a group of men at Southern Cross Station just before 10 o'clock last night when he was assaulted. The suspects are aged between 13 and 20. 5 of them have been charged. Lawyers have been called in as a stoush over a school gate in Melbourne's north escalates. Council officers removed the gate overnight. The defiant school put it back up, and then late today, a new twist.
Council workers arrive under the cover of darkness to remove the front gate to Alphington Grammar.
It's disappointing, hugely disappointing.
In what's become an increasingly nasty stoush between the school and Yarra City Council, the school erected a temporary fence to keep the public out. But then, just after the bell rang for home time, a resident armed with an angle grinder cut the fence down again, threatening to come back.
and I'll be back tonight to remove that motor. And try to use the excuse that you're saving the kids or protecting the kids, it's bullshit, and we know it. What you're doing is you're trying to steal by adverse possession, and we know it.
The council ordered the school remove the gate by 5 p.m. yesterday as it blocks a public road. But the principal refused because of concerns for student safety, having strangers on school grounds.
I think more disbelief than anything else, that despite the fact that lawyers are now involved and they have received a letter to halt on this, because everything else has been ignored, it fell on deaf ears.
The council saying it's incredibly disappointed Alphington Grammar School did not do the right thing and comply with their legal requirement to remove the gate.
I think the only conclusion I can draw is that Yarra Council isn't interested in resolving this in a respectful manner that takes into account the safety of the children.
Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
A Shepparton mother at the centre of a deadly love triangle is fighting a murder charge. Bianca Edmonds wasn't at the crime scene, but she's accused of masterminding a lethal plot.
Bianca Edmonds is accused of ordering her husband to murder her former partner. It's alleged she sent Glenn Cassidy to Michael Caposienna's home with a gun. The men ended up killing each other in front of Caposienna's girlfriend, Silvana Silva. Today, she told a jury Caposienna grabbed a knife before he opened the front door, inflicting knife wounds on Cassidy before he was shot in the head. Then Cassidy turned on her. I started screaming outside for help, and that's when he pointed the gun towards my head as well and pulled the trigger. But it didn't work, so then he started assaulting me. Cassidy died from wounds inflicted by the man he'd set out to attack, while the terrified woman begged neighbours for help. I tried to do CPR, I tried everything, and I screamed and yelled for help. I was asking people, please help me inside here, help my Michael. Bianca Edmonds is accused of egging on her husband to kill her ex-partner by telling him he'd do it if he was a real man. But she says she's not guilty of murder and denies directing, assisting or encouraging Cassidy to do anything untoward. The trial continues tomorrow. Estelle Greeping, 7 News.
As Queen Elizabeth prepares to celebrate her Platinum Jubilee, another Queen is also marking a significant milestone. Margarita of Denmark has been on the throne for 50 years. She praised Queen Elizabeth for her 70-year reign.
She's been through many things in her life, and now she's alone, and she's still bearing up beautifully. That really is most impressive.
Celebrations for Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee begin next week. Jane Bunn joins us now, and Jane, this morning's sunrise was stunning.
Mitch, the sky was lit up at dawn thanks to cloud coming in, and it means that was the last chilly night in this stretch. Clear skies overnight, let it drop to 7 in the city and freezing in outer suburbs. Then cloud came in at dawn, turning the sky red. During the day we had sheets of high cloud overhead. It reached 19.6 thanks to northeasterly winds. However, there is rain on the way, now crossing these parts of Western Victoria. I'll show you when that'll arrive in Melbourne after sport, Mitch.
OK, we'll see you then. Thank you, Jane. Police are hunting for 2 pit bulls after a savage attack on a dog walker and a cavoodle. Details are next on 7 News. Also coming up, breaking news on a power outage at Melbourne Airport and surrounding suburbs. A massive health shock for Meghan Markle's father. And Cinderella slips into Melbourne with a twist. We have breaking news now, and Melbourne Airport is currently experiencing a power blackout. Details are coming in to Rochelle Brown in the newsroom, and Rochelle, thousands of people are affected.
Mitch, this blackout stretches beyond the airport to western suburbs, including Footscray, Airport West and Maribyrnong, with as many as 17,000 customers affected. At the airport, passengers say electricity has been cut out not once but twice in the past hour. A generator kicked in after the first outage and power was restored. But a short time ago, it went out again, plunging terminals into darkness. We understand flight baggage check-ins are affected, although it's not clear at this stage whether there's an impact on arrivals. And the lights came back on just at the airport a few minutes ago. The good news is the power has also been restored to some areas, but as for the airport, anyone with travel plans tonight should check with their airline. Mitch?
Rochelle Brown in the newsroom, thank you. Police are asking for help to track down 2 dogs responsible for a savage attack on a man and his cavoodle. The animals killed the pet and badly injured the man as they were walking in Jacana.
Battered, badly bruised, with stitches holding together bite wounds, Patrick Chrysostomo put his life on the line for Kevy the cavoodle.
At least I can say I tried my best.
They were walking along Moonee Ponds Creek Trail last Thursday when they were attacked. Mr Chrysostomo says the dogs appeared to be pit bulls, the owner 30 seconds behind them.
So I'm directly addressing him, begging him, screaming, help, they're biting me, they're killing my dog. And he doesn't say anything other than that one time he says stop.
The man fled, leaving the 15-year-old dog and Mr Chrysostomo bleeding and begging for help. The dog owner also left behind a stick he used on his 2 pets.
Had that man not even decided to stop his dogs at all, I don't think they would have stopped. And that man clearly knew his dogs were dangerous. That's why he had a stick with him.
The owner is described as being Middle Eastern, stocky, in his late 30s and was wearing a brown jacket. One of the dogs is white, the other brown, and police are hoping someone may be able to identify them because they're worried there may be other victims.
To also not stay on scene and render any assistance to the victim or his dog it's just unacceptable behaviour.
Mr Chrysostomo was minding the pet for a relative who is overseas. The call to them, heartbreaking.
We were meant to look after him for an entire year. That was the hardest part.
Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
3 men are back on dry land tonight after their yacht capsized off Western Australia. They set off an emergency beacon when they ran into trouble near Jurien Bay, about 200 kilometres north of Perth. Their vessel overturned in a 5-metre swell and 30-knot winds. Rescuers say it's the hardest operation they've been sent to. The men were treated for hypothermia. Meghan Markle's father has suffered a stroke days before a planned trip to London. Thomas Markle was seen on a stretcher after being taken from his home in Mexico to a hospital in California. He was due to be in London during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, but will now miss the event. Victorian theatre lovers are being spoilt for choice at the moment with a new musical opening in Melbourne this week. This version of Cinderella has all the classic fairy tale moments and a little bit of modern magic thrown in.
It's Cinderella with a 2022 twist. The Tony Award-winning Broadway production has arrived in Melbourne.
Our production is so wonderful that it also has such a contemporary take on the story and some really modern, interesting twists.
The classic tale of a young woman treated badly by her stepmother and sisters before being saved by a handsome prince needed a modern makeover.
The goal was that Cinderella saves the prince as much as the prince saves her.
It contains all the fairy tale elements audiences love: glass slippers, a pumpkin and a masked ball. But this time around, Cinderella is much more than a pretty face, helping change those around her for the better.
It's lovely to come to a show where the message is kindness.
The Australian cast that we have is outrageously talented. There is a never-ending source of talent. They dance, they sing, they act.
The show runs at the Regent Theatre until mid-July. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
We need more kindness. Victorians are heading for what the experts call a mortgage cliff. Next on 7 News, why home buyers are headed for more repayment pain and what they can do about it. Also a plea in a manhunt after a sex attack in Melbourne's north. See how car thieves went to extremes to steal a Holden Commodore. And otter joy, thanks to boot camp workouts for some zoo favourites. Detectives are hunting a man after a woman was sexually assaulted on a bus in the northern suburbs. Police have released security video of the suspect. He's accused of attacking the woman on a bus between Broadmeadows and Essendon train stations on May the 3rd. A thief has gone to great efforts to steal a car from a Queensland towing yard. He stole a front-end loader, crashed it through the gates and used it to shove a truck away from a row of cars. He then started a fire and got into a 2017 Holden Commodore before backing it out and taking off in it. The ASX 200 has bounced back today. Here's finance editor Gemma Acton with the latest.
Thanks, Peter. Well, despite a sharp sell-off on Wall Street overnight, the ASX 200 has delivered a decent session, adding 26 points to close at 7,155. The big four banks and our supermarkets were among today's best performers. The Aussie dollar is close to its highest level in 3 weeks, currently around 71 US cents, while gold is continuing its week-long steady march higher. And new data shows that construction activity fell earlier this year. Economists are blaming the devastating floods in New South Wales and Queensland, as well as the material and labour shortages that caused building costs to surge by the most in 21 years. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. Hundreds of thousands of home buyers are bracing for what's being called a mortgage cliff. Record numbers of buyers are locked in record low fixed interest rates, which are about to come to an end.
Stressed home borrowers heading for a mortgage cliff.
They are quite concerned. Some are panicked.
2 years ago, home buyers started cashing in on a fixed interest rate boom, locking in cheap deals below 2%. But for many, the honeymoon is about to end as those fixed terms expire.
What people will be encountering is a sharp rise in their monthly repayments.
500,000 borrowers could soon see their interest rate double when they revert to variable.
They're probably going to feel more of a shock than had they been a little bit more conservative with their borrowing.
On a $500,000 mortgage, savvy borrowers have been paying as little as $1,871 a month on their fixed 2-year loans. Right now, reverting to a variable rate increases monthly repayments by $369 to $2,240. $1 million mortgage holders on 2-year fixed rates will have monthly repayments pushed from $3,741 to $4,479. That's an extra $738 to find. And there could be further pain in store for householders when the Reserve Bank Board meets in 2 weeks to decide the future of the cash rate. But for now, there are still banking bargains to be found, with Homestar Finance offering 1.79% interest rates and Ubank spruiking 1.89% for home loans.
Try and renegotiate your variable rate with your lender that you're with at the moment. And outside of that, the second would be to try and shop around for a better deal.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
Heading into winter, it can be hard to find the motivation for morning exercise, but not if you're an otter. Taking part in boot camp at Melbourne Zoo, the family of 6 eagerly runs across their enclosure when they hear a rattle. The otters practice running and jumping, although it seems they have catching down pat. Very cute indeed. Sport is next with Tim Watson. And Tim, a club legend has volunteered to return to help the beleaguered Kangaroos.
That's right. Mitchell Canterbury Kerry has spoken out about the mess at Arden Street. The exclusive interview is up next. Also a 180 from Luke Beveridge over some controversial tactics. A Pies big man revved up to hold his spot, but doubts grow in a young star ahead of the grudge match against Carlton. Hawks exclusive details on a new team in the NT as the Hawks take a bizarre approach ahead of their trip north. And a tennis star lashes out on a fiery day at the French Open. Welcome back. Frustration has reached boiling point at North Melbourne with a club legend weighing in. Chief football reporter Tom Brown has the fallout. And Tom, Wayne Carey isn't the only former player who's fed up.
Tim, that's right. There's massive pressure tonight on coach David Noble, but the frustrations are much broader at North Melbourne. The club a short time ago issuing their own in-house video to members. What I can tell you is there's massive communications issues behind the scenes. A source explaining not even all the directors are across all the recent major decisions. A separate source explaining two prominent supporters are at least considering a ticket. One highly influential supporter plans to meet with the CEO and president as soon as Friday to address some of these issues. Concerned former players have reached out to Wayne Carey, who I spoke with one-on-one.
The King's speech. With North such a rabble, Wayne Carey's reluctantly spoken out.
I'm arm's length, so, you know, I guess I get a lot of information from ex-teammates, spoke to a few this morning, and they're very concerned.
Carey thinks the Kangaroos are besieged by factions.
I think for me, Tom, it's all about communication.
So you're obviously worried that it's become factionalised?
100%. I think they're the issues there. I don't think from senior position right down through to the players that they're all on the same page.
Pointing to issues between coach David Noble and his players.
So there's problems from the coach to the player, and then within the club.
Carey supporting the new president, who hasn't done a TV interview.
I haven't spoken to the senior coach. I spoke to Sonia, who I think's doing a great job, but clearly there's communication breaking down within that footy club.
Carey also revealing he'd return to help.
Right now, this is the lowest this footy club's been since I can remember. If the right people are at the footy club and I was asked to help, Tom, my door's always open.
The man who really put North on the map, dismissing talk of a move to Tasmania, which is being touted by at least one club.
As far as I know, and my want for the footy club, North Melbourne's going nowhere. Their name's North Melbourne for a reason.
Tom Brown, 7 News.
Luke Beveridge has backed away from allegations of foul play against key forward Aaron Norton. A pair of big-name Bulldogs are set to return this week, but one-star midfielder is in doubt for the trip west.
Sometimes it's what you don't say that makes the most noise. Aaron Norton was kept goalless after half-time against the Gold Coast.
I've got to be really careful here. He's been so dominant, and then, there are reasons why he wasn't in the second half. That's all I'll say.
Today, Luke Beveridge was backing away from his post-match comments.
I didn't really say anything at the time.
You alluded to something, though, perhaps something nefarious happening from the Gold Coast perspective. Is that fair?
Well, it depends what your interpretation is of what I alluded to.
While the Dogs didn't contact the AFL directly this week, Beveridge's comments, however vague, have thrown a spotlight on just how the men in green treat Aaron Norton and his opponent in the coming weeks. Tim English and Cody Waitman set to return against the Eagles, but star midfielder Bailey Smith was kept away from the club today with illness. He'll need to prove his fitness for the trip west. The Cats have defended, putting superstar Patrick Dangerfield through a heavy training block after he was sidelined with a recurring calf issue.
That may well cost us along the way, but in my opinion that's a better approach for us to take with him.
And Mason Cox got things into high gear at Collingwood today. But Jack Ginnivan was again on light duties and will need to complete Friday's main session ahead of Sunday's blockbuster against the Blues. Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
The Northern Territory is stepping up its bid for an AFL team. Mitch Cleary is live with exclusive details. And Mitch, this is gathering pace.
Well, Tim, the NT will be ready to hit go on its bid if Tasmania is given a 19th licence this year. NT will be pitching the need for a 20-team competition across 10 rounds. 7 News can reveal the NT Task Force has just commissioned a 3-month business case, which includes plans for a 25,000-seat stadium in the Darwin CBD, the funding model between business and government, the growth in Darwin given its proximity to Asia, the social impact in in the top end and how many games Alice Springs would host given its improved climate. Meantime, Hawthorn today used eskies with water and detergent to prepare for the conditions they'll face in Darwin on Saturday against Gold Coast. Ned Reeves to undergo a fitness test on his shoulder tomorrow. If he fails, they won't have a recognised ruckman, with the likes of Sam Frost a chance to ruck. A watch now on whether Cyril Rioli will meet with the Hawks in Darwin this weekend.
What he is thinking and feeling with the club on a big picture, that's up to him. But he is, a premiership teammate. We shared some great memories together, so I'll try and catch him up there.
And finally, Richmond coach Damien Hardwick has today said any game that Kane Lambert plays in the back half of the year will be a bonus, given his long-term and persistent hip injuries. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. Justin Langer has broken his silence after a shock departure as Australian coach. Langer revealed details of a conversation he had with the acting chairman as he left the top job.
So, yeah, I'm glad my mates are looking after me. Imagine if you had have.
Langer was only offered a 6-month contract in February before sensationally quitting. The Aussies keep tumbling at Roland Garros. John Millman was beaten by 27th seed Sebastian Korda, while Alex de Minaur was confronted by a vocal crowd during his 5 sets loss to local Hugo Gaston. Joe Wilfried Tsonga received an emotional farewell in his last ever singles match, going down to Casper Ruud, and Russia's Andrei Rublev blew up, smashing a ball in anger which nearly hit a groundsman in the face. A leaky roof from a heavy downpour in Dallas held up Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals between the Mavericks and Warriors. But it only helped the Mavs, who were reigning threes on court.
And Dinwiddie again from 3, gets another one.
Luka Doncic had 30 points as Dallas avoided a clean sweep in the series, winning 119-109. Mitch, they had to call the plumbers in to fix that leak at half-time.
The roofing plumbers?
Yes, they had to get up there with a little bit of silicone and fix that pouring in.
And do you think we will end up with 20 teams in the AFL eventually?
Eventually, yes, I think we will. Maybe you and I may not be still sitting here, but I think we'll get there at some stage, Mitch.
Tasmania and the NT I'm talking
That's
about.
right. Jane will still be doing the weather.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And Jane is next with the forecast, funnily enough. And Jane, when does the rain arrive?
Oh, Mitch, it should begin around dawn tomorrow ahead of a fairly wet Thursday. But it does clear out by the weekend. The full details are next. Hello again. There is rain on the way. It should begin in Melbourne around dawn tomorrow morning. We've had sheets of high cloud overhead today. Spectacular at first, then just a bit of grey high overhead. So that is the kind that doesn't produce any rain. The city began on 7 and reached a top of 19.6. The cloud is sweeping in from the west and we began to see showers pop up in the far west this afternoon. Now the main event is a band of patchy rain and thunderstorms approaching these western towns now. The biggest fall in South Australia was 13 millimetres in Mount Gambier. It can be heavier in a storm, but most saw less than 5 millimetres. This band of wet weather is just ahead of a trough. That trough is weakening as it approaches this strong area of high pressure. So the trough and cold front that follows will slide southwards as they cross the southeast. There is another cold front due on Saturday, but that one is also weak. Then a stronger system arrives on Monday. Tonight we have this band of rain and thunderstorms only moving across these parts of the west. The rest of the state remains dry this evening. Tomorrow that band continues crossing central and then eastern areas with showers popping up in behind it. On Friday, a bit of showery activity with the sliding cold front. Now over 3 days, this is how much rain could fall. Now this model shows generally around 10 millimetres, locally 20. But I feel it is too much. Most should be around 5 if you're away from the ranges. Then there is a lot more rain due starting on Monday. Around the nation tomorrow, no more wet weather for Sydney. Areas of fog clearing to sunshine. It's the same for Canberra. Brisbane, there's showers tomorrow. Late showers in Hobart. Early showers in Adelaide. Sunshine for Perth. To Victoria, by dawn, the area of showers tending to rain is crossing these central districts and it slowly heads into the east. In behind that is another area of showers. That's over the southwest and Wimmera, but less likely up in the Mallee. Cloudy but mild thanks to northerly winds. They shift cooler westerly in behind that trough. Closer in, the wet weather should begin around dawn, so we are wet for much of the day with showers tending to persistent rain, breaking up for the late afternoon before a burst of showers does return in the evening with that trough. Wet but generally 2 to 8 millimetres, and you'll see there are no more cold nights thanks to that cloud. The city begins on 12, it'll have a top of 17. Cloudy and wet for much of the time, showers tending to persistent rain that is least likely here in the late afternoon. To the 8-day outlook, it is grey for much of Friday, but just a bit of drizzle. Most should actually be quite dry, and it is a top of 16 under that cloud. For Saturday and Sunday, it's dry during the day. We'll have patches of sunshine. It should be quite nice. 17 and 16, there's a chance of showers Saturday night and the early hours of Sunday. Then it is a big, cold and wet system coming in Monday, Tuesday and easing on Wednesday. We're looking at lots of alpine snow with this one. 17 tomorrow, showers tending to persistent rain, so I'd certainly bring out the umbrella for tomorrow, Mitch.
Always keep one in the car boot.
Handy.
Great, thank you very much, Jane. Now here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, the new buy now, pay later consumer warning.
How Aussies are being caught out with bills for thousands. It's a special consumer investigation. See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Wednesday, the 25th of May. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, keep the umbrella handy and good night.